morning everyone. Welcome to Djuma Game Reserve and welcome to Wild Earth this morning. Beautiful morning drive ahead of us. Hope you're going to have fun. My name is Mark. We have Liam on camera today. Brian and the thumb are controlling everything from final control. Elephant was here, breaking branches, feeding on the marula. Been some elephant activity about since 2 days ago. A lot of elephant tracks and dung, and since all these marulas are starting to fruit now, especially out here in the open area, we're hopefully going to see some of them coming out to feed on the marula fruits. First early tracks of the morning, but they're from late yesterday going north. Not right, this was flicked on and off.
Yeah, dodging the base.
Very, very low cloud hanging over that sort of Kruger, other side of Buffelshoek, in the northeast. Very thick, if not even raining maybe. Clear skies to the south, blue skies above. It was overcast this morning, it's all moved off. I guess that might be what has moved away. That's interesting. I thought I was the only one walking around barefoot. Other hominid tracks. Barefoot hominid tracks. Morning, children. Now I'm to start talking to the world. Let's see what we've got. A question. Sorry. First question in from Finland. Morning, Racer. Asking about middens. Which antelope make or use middens? And would we be able to show you one? We could. Wildebeest have sort of middens. They have spots where they have a dust bath. They're also defecating. There are also impala middens in the rutting season. Fresh elephant tracks going down. Let's see, who else could there be? Won't find. Will they bury it? Like sort of. Buffalo on the wall. Already in, yes. And I think we'll come back to nose around and see what animals have been moving around in the last 2 days. Yesterday and last night, particularly. Impala middens only really occur during the rutting season, but there might be the odd old one unless it's overgrown. I shall look out for some. in Siberia. Wow, we don't get too many questions out of Siberia. Siberia must be quite cold right now. Marco is asking about our temperatures here. Currently probably about 24, Brian is saying, 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 24 Celsius. We can expect it to push up into maybe the 30s today. The three Birmingham boys crossed over into the north. But we don't really have very cold winters here. We don't ever get frost. We don't get below zero. Occasionally, it can get pretty close to zero, maybe down to 2 degrees at the very coldest. I do recall one year though that there was a cold snap, and that it must have been about 4 or 5 years ago. An exceptionally cold snap, but it was only in the very, very low-lying areas, and it had come down this, rather up the Milwaukee River, and there were a few trees, especially along here. It could almost be a land of cold had burnt the leaves. And I recall there's a hornbill digging in buffalo dung, looking for dung beetle larvae and other larvae. I remember even, actually it was almost here, in fact, Chelapan, that I found it. There was a chameleon that had been struck by that cold, and it had actually frozen on the branch, and well, its front legs had slipped off, but its back legs were still holding on, but it had died overnight in the position it was sleeping. Poor child. And things are not really used to cold here. We have a number of broadleaf species of trees that aren't equipped to deal with anything close to freezing or frost. That's a very determined hornbill. They found what it wanted, one of them, maybe a beetle, and another one. I have to disturb you, little one. You can come back after I've gone by. Excuse me. Thank you. But our winter daytime temperatures can actually be warmer than this. pushing up close to 30 degrees Celsius maybe on the odd winter's day. California. There is such a thing as water. And yes, they do. In certain areas. Breaking up. Maryland. Breaking up too much. Okavango, probably back safaris. Thinking of leopard tracks coming there, but I just heard on the radio that it went that she. But yes, the horse trails, horseback safaris in the Okavango. They do horseback safaris. Other game farms, there other ranches, game ranches that are very tame horseback safaris, and that there are no predators, so there's no danger from lion. It's one thing you have to be. Horses have to be specifically trained to deal with lion and those other wild animals. Oh, look at that, the moon and the Wahlberg's eagle.
Signal issues. A beautiful shot of the setting moon with Wahlberg's eagle sitting in the morning light. Oops, and there I lost my picture. I'm going to actually have the moon setting behind. The eagle, and I think we're going to wait for that for a minute or two. Sitting high up in the susha, weeping boerbean. Really beautiful when it's in flower, this phase. There you get blonde and brunette Wahlbergs. I'm being mobbed by a fork-tailed dingo now. As long as the drongo is mobbing, it can't do much hunting. But it's also the drongo will then force it out of the territory. The eagle will eventually to leave because it has become such a nuisance. The drongo, being such a much smaller bird, not more agile, the eagle wouldn't be able to do much about it. I don't know, is it a drongo? I did take my binoculars out of my bag. Oh, I did bring them too. Where'd that? Gone. How's it looking?
And we're both saying, oh, I'll have to pause now again. I mean, Napuki. Hi everyone. Very good, and you? You got a vehicle, got ladies on your vehicle today.
Yeah,
Aren't you lucky? Both of you. Behind it. But very nice. Seen any in Globe anyway?
No, Ndovi is more like in the Mluanini.
Yeah. Also a lot of them conzo up on Triple M, coming around between Triple M and where's access ways. I'm gonna head up that way maybe.
So but you go from Ghana.
Yeah.
To the Cutler, the way is from a back to Chitwa.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Have a lovely day. Bye. Yes, back to horseback safaris, horse trails. Very important thing when riding is in wildlife areas that the horses have to behave themselves, or they have to know to stay calm with things like elephant, buffalo, and especially the cats. The last thing you want to have is a horse rearing up and freaking out because there's a lion in the grass and leaving you behind. But really amazing to ride horses amongst wildlife, especially the plains game, zebra. I've done a bit of horse riding with things like giraffe and warthog and wildebeest and zebra and impala. And you can certainly get a lot closer to animals on horseback than you can on foot. But it's a wonderful feeling to be a part of that kind of scenario, being on an animal with animals. Been a lot of action here at Twin Dams, a lot of grass and vegetation in the water. That's either elephant or buffalo. Okay, time to, what's it going to be, east or west? West. Wend our way west. Windy. The sheath-tailed bats have what we call an interfemoral membrane that goes from the base of the femur, I guess you could say, down to the toes, and it either extends all the way down the tail or halfway down the tail, and it forms this pocket with which they catch their insects. As they're flying in the air, they'll curl their tail, and this membrane acts as like a basket with which they catch their insects, and then in mid-air they'll bend down, take the insect out of the pouch and eat it on the wing, or if need be land with it if it's really big. But it doesn't stay in the pouch. As soon as they catch it in the pouch, they put it in their mouth and bite it and kill it. Then if need be they'll land somewhere to feed on it. Free-tailed bats are bats that don't have the interfemoral membrane. They're bats that have a very loose, mouse-like tail. No doubt catch things with their mouth. I need a little worry swish because there's a number of flies today. When you get a lot of flies pupating, it's possible that that's precursor to rain as well. What was that being chased, I wonder? Like a weaver chasing, could have been a cuckoo. Do any of the tortoises make sounds? Hello DJ in California. They do hiss and grunt, especially when mating. Most tortoises do. Seems to be quite a what's the word I'm looking for? A strain, quite an effort is required for mating, yes. Most noise you'll hear out of tortoises during mating. Angie, morning Angie, in Iowa. Maybe there's still sausage trees here at Djuma. There is only one that I know of. There are some in the camp at WildEarthTV, but there's only one out in the bush that I know of here at Djuma. Unusually so, but I guess they also require sort of riparian areas. And if we go past it, I'll point it out to you, the sausages on that tree. There are a couple this year that seem to be getting quite large. Oh, that was an interesting thing. I've just seen a weaver bird flying out of the nest with a poop sack. Now, a lot of birds that have fairly closed nests can't afford for their chicks to be pooping in the nest. So it comes out in a membrane that actually has to be collected by the adult as it comes out the other end. So normally there's a timing that's involved, that when an adult brings a chick food, when the food goes in one end, the poop sac comes out the other, and the adult bird will then fly away with it. I don't know how we'll ever get that on film, and it'll be very difficult because it's hard to guess when one of these weavers are going to come flying out of one of their nests, and mostly the female that's doing it. I managed to film a chin spot batis doing that one day. See if I can try and find it and put it through an editing program. And that'll be difficult, but I'll try and do something with that. Just wonderful how sanitary they are. Getting the drongo skimming the water. That was drinking. Drinking, bathing at the same time. Wonderful peaceful scene here at Treehouse Dam. Do we have any underground caverns in Africa? Well, Clancy, hi Clancy. So hi, how are you doing this morning? Well, Africa pretty big. I can't speak for most of the rest of Africa because I don't know about caves and caverns and other parts of Africa, but certainly here in South Africa we've got a couple of famous caves down in the Cape, the famous Kango caves. And not far from here, just on the other side of the escarpment, are there are a lot of other caves known as the Echo Caves, and then further south you get the Sudwala Caves. Most important, of course, I suppose, are a bunch of caves up near Johannesburg on what we call the Highveld, region. They're probably some of the oldest hominid sites in the world. There's a place called Wonder Cave and the Cradle of Humankind, or the Cradle of Mankind, where some of the earliest known hominid fossils have been found. Some very interesting caves too, that have been studied by paleoanthropologists for decades, since the 20s, 30s. Some famous paleoanthropologists from the 50s, Raymond Dart, Bill Brain, Clark. Lately there's Professor Lee Berger, who's very busy with documenting the different species of not only hominids but all the mammals that lived in the area 2.5 to 3.5 million years ago, and then of course a number of extinct both predators and prey and species of hominids. I did work closely with them a long time ago. It would have been 24 years ago, 23 years ago, when Professor Berger was straight out of Atlanta. He did his master's in Atlanta, and he came out to find somewhere to do his PhD, and I met him when he had found the first evidence of hominid fossils in a place where they'd been looking for decades, and that got him his funding to do the research and continue the digs. and some wonderful things have come out of it. And well, he's pretty much leading the whole thing 25 years later. Well, one of the most interesting things for me, that I guess I could say was a pivotal moment in my life. Seems to have a bit of traffic here. Working with Lee, I was managing the game reserve with his prime. It was a really beautiful private game reserve, and a number of these caves were on the reserve, and being manager of the reserve, I had to transport and look after all the people that were coming in and out, and paleobotanists, paleoanthropologists, paleontologists, some pretty important people from that field, from all over the world, that would come and visit the site. And so I was very lucky to spend time with them. But developing a friendship with Lee Berger was great, because I could go to places that ordinarily I wouldn't have ever gotten access to, not being in the academic field, and specifically not in that field. But one of the first days of being at the dig and at the site was just picking up rock that was scattered everywhere, breccia we call it, that had been dug out of these caves by miners at the turn of the 20th century, about 100 years ago, just over 100 years ago, to get to the lime, because there were limestone deposits in amongst the dolomite, and they didn't really care much for the breccia, for this rock that's just jam-packed with fossil. And you can imagine caves that are exposed to the outside world for millions of years, and predators that use those caves, and I guess to some extent hominids that would have also brought prey into those caves, and the accumulations of bone building up to 10, 12, 15 feet deep, and then over time roof of the cave collapsing and burying all of that debris, bat guano developing over time too, and well, it eventually fossilizing and forming rock, so that you could pick up a piece of rock and there was more bone in the rock than rock itself. And you could see the ends of long bones, you could see the teeth, you could make out a bunch of different things. But what was interesting was holding a rock, holding a piece of breccia in one hand. That was the fossilized remains of animals from 2.5 to 3.5 million years ago, and then in the other hand holding the bones of an eland or a blessed buck or one of the local antelope that had been brought into that cave by a leopard that week. And this difference of 2.5 to 3.5 million years of the same process taking place, and well, that, as well as coming to terms with the fact that in the blink of an eye. In the matter of 2 or 3 decades, we as humans have pretty much wiped out everything in most of the rest of the world. I mean, it's just quite frightening to think how quick we have just taken over this planet, and for how long, on the other hand, nature remained unchanged and unaffected and unspoiled by humans. Big male leopard heading south. Like maybe one of Karula's boys that was here. So that was a really important point in my life. Having that time span between my hands and an identical process, unchanged in time. Morning Sue, and morning to Canada. I'm sure there might be a couple of other Canadians watching. Sue in Canada wanted to know what happens to weaver chicks. If they fall out of the nest when the nest is hanging over water, are they able to survive? Very unusual for weaver chicks to just fall out of a nest. However, they do get pushed out of the nest. There are a couple of cuckoos that parasitize weavers, and then of course when the cuckoo hatches it does shove the others out. The bowl of the weaver's nest is actually sits quite low to the mouth. You know, they have the tunnel that comes into the top of the nest. If we go past some weaver nests again, I'll have a look on the ground and see if we can't maybe find a fallen weaver nest. You do get some that get chopped down. Now, it's not really that easy for them to fall out of the nest. It's not impossible, especially some of the weavers, like these masked weavers that, excuse me, just trying to listen to an update on the radio. Sorry about that. Nothing forthcoming. Lovely sound. Turn that down now. Okay, I'm gonna Rick and Susie, get back to Rick and Susie shortly. Let's carry on. I was interrupted. I needed to listen to the radio. I don't want to miss out on anything, but also don't want to inadvertently drive into a sighting if there are already a couple of vehicles there, so it is important to keep track of things. But depending on the age of the weavers, if they do fall into the water, sometimes they can flap to the edge of the pond and get out, and I guess maybe climb into trees, but you might find that terrapins will pull them in and kill them and eat them. But pretty much the young bird out of a weaver's nest is history. Something will find it. If it's old enough to hop around and get back into a tree, if its feathers are starting to develop, the parents will feed it. So one thing about young birds is that the parents do have quite a strong parental obligation, and even if a bird is out of the nest, often find that the parents will feed it. It might be vulnerable because it will be crying, and of course there are a bunch of small raptors, snakes and other things, cats, that are likely to aim for a bird that's out of the nest. Look at this, it's just suddenly become overcast. That cloud that we saw in the northeast is coming over, cooling things down a little bit. Elephants! Lots of elephants. I was looking at that shrike and suddenly I saw a baby elephant. This is going to be fantastic because I'm hoping they're going to let us sit with them a while, especially those two little ones that are playing down there. So we want to try and get to see them as long as Mom lets us do that. Maybe we'll just stop here before. Look at those two little things, 2-year-old, like a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, having a wonderful game. Let's go down the little track that heads to the old hyena den. I don't think that hyena den is active anymore, but if we go down there and we sit quietly, I'm sure the Ellies will get used to us and they'll let us watch the babies. Rainfall lately, I can't tell how much we've had. I haven't got a rain gauge, but I'm guessing we've had in the region of 100 and something millimeters. Not much in the last week though. The female is getting a little bit concerned, but we'll just take it slow. We don't want to disturb them. We don't want to force them on. We want them to just... Can you see over this little bush to the children? Oh, let me go forward a little bit because we want to watch those babies play a little bit. I think the bigger one is bullying a little bit, bullying the smaller one. Morning everybody. And the blue feather in my hat is from a lilac-breasted roller. Okay, let's move down a little. Hello, Miss Ellie. Hello, Mrs. Ellie. This is my matriarch, I'm pretty sure, this big girl that's here. Okay, I'm stopped. I'll be quiet. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to trouble you, girl. That's a little bit of a mock charge. Just I guess a warning. She's not too sure what we plan to do, but if we sit quietly, she'll relax. There she goes to feeding again. Is that what you think of me, huh? Brenda was asking about Ellies. Do they ever take a load off their feet? Do they ever lie down or squat? The youngsters do, definitely. The youngsters tend to lie. They lie down and sleep. Oh, she's really not pleased. That head throw is doesn't really need much explanation. It pretty much speaks for itself. Madam, you can't back up anymore. You've got a tree behind you. Three little ones playing now. I don't know if they'll just move so that we can see them and not hide behind a tree. The youngsters lie down. During the heat of the day, you'll find a herd like this, will find a big marula tree or a fairly large tree to stand under, the adults won't lie down. They'll kind of lock their elbows and knees and doze off for a short while. There have been times where I've had adult bulls sleeping, but they require soft sand. They need certain conditions to be able to sleep lying down. But sleep also, one has to remember that for an elephant that has to be pretty much processing food all the time, sleep is it's not the same for them as it is for us. They can doze off for a few minutes. Those little ones are so cute. If only we could just get to see them better. Big mama. Gosh, John in California is asking a very difficult question. What is my most amazing elephant encounter? We've got to just move and try and see those babies play. They just happen to just right behind a tree. I can't even think, John. I find it's a very difficult thing for me to single out in certain things like that. Having lived with them for pretty much most of my life, I have elephant encounters almost daily. My most memorable. That's a difficult question. Little one investigating the road. And that must be Big Sister that it's at. I wonder if they'll go onto that termite mound. Now, a couple of years ago, this termite mound was quite significant because Karula had her cubs in that hole. You can't really see the hole, but there's a patch of grass sort of right in the middle of that termite mound that actually has a deep hole in it, more or less right in front of where that cow is standing now, where at the tip of her tusks and where her trunk is. She's now feeding on the grasses. That was the mouth of that hole. The hyena den was active, and it was quite strange that she actually had her cubs here, Shivinzi and Shivambalana, so close to the hyena den. We saw her come out of there one day. We didn't see, I don't recall seeing the cubs here, but we did see her carrying things from, well, she was seen carrying something from here. And then I think it was a week or two later that we saw her for the first time with the two cubs. I think if I have to think of some of the memorable encounters I've had, I used to live with a couple of bull elephants that were permanent residents of a camp I was running in Tanzania in the Selous Game Reserve. Resident bulls that I got to know very well. They got to know me. And one bull in particular, who we called Joseph, was a fantastic big bull. And I had a lot of interactions with him. Little one stretching its trunk to smell the matriarch. You can see how she's now going to actually use her tail to feel where the calf is. Often they'll do that. They don't see very well directly behind them, but they use the tail and their back legs to feel And now she's turning her head, she'll see the little one. I can remember Trey one day in the Okavango Delta. I was in between two camps. My camp, I was running a wet camp, which was a camp on its own little island, and my brother was running the sister camp on the mainland. It was a 3-hour boat ride between the two, and I was between the two. I was in one of the very narrow channels with quite tall papyrus on either side, and there were 2 elephant bulls playing in the water, and they were really playing. They were tussling and pushing each other under and having a ball. And I stopped upstream and switched the engine off, and I started drifting down towards them. And then as I got a lot closer, and because it was such a narrow channel, they couldn't really get out of the channel very easily, and I couldn't. The only way I would be able to do anything was starting up the engine and moving back upstream, but the engine wouldn't start. It was flooded. And I remembered in this little flat-bottomed aluminium boat drifting down almost into these 2 bulls playing, and they both stuck their head up out of the water. They didn't know I was there. They'd been so engrossed in each other. And suddenly they looked up when I was almost on top of them, and all I could do was apologize profusely for barging in on them like that. But they both moved aside, and I drifted past. Got a head shake out of both of them because they were a little bit upset. And then went on my way. There was also an elephant that lived in camp in the Okavango, and he used to come and lie down, and he would dig a depression right next to my tent, at the entrance to my tent, and his trunk would actually curl onto the ground sheet of the tent. And I used to sleep on the floor. I had a mattress on the floor. And I remember matching his breathing on many occasions, where he would be stretched out, which is very unusual for a big bull, but he would sleep for a while, and I would lie there and listen to him in the moonlight. And we'd talk to each other. Okay, what I think I'd like to do is go around to the other side of the drainage line. It looks like they're heading towards Rebecca's Road, and if we go over there, we'll actually get a nice view of them from a distance and watch them coming towards us, maybe. So, get a message out. I know Ephraim might be looking. Sorry. Hurry. Driving Viam through thorn bushes. I can't see the track behind me. I need rear view mirrors. Morning, MJ. In Texas. What does it mean when a female is discharging from the temporal gland? Well, it's usually a stress-induced discharge. Stress, excitement, emotion. The long-tailed shrikes. Magpie shrike. Hello, magpie shrike. Old Misikaya. Sorry. Sorry, I didn't copy that. Go again. Yeah, affirmative. Whereabout are you now? Hello, Dawn. Look, we've got this calf drinking from the big matriarch. Dawn was asking about, well, the question was if there are a lot of adult elephants and you have a lot of children, do the adults ever inadvertently step on or injure the youngsters? And if so, what do they do about it? I don't want to start the engine because I don't want to change things, but the little one is drinking and Mom's just standing quietly, but I'm just going to have to move a little forward for us and hope that she doesn't pull away from the calf. Is that good? Memories of an elephant between the front legs. I've never seen it, Dawn. I have been around breeding herds and big herds of elephant, and I've never seen. See, there's another calf drinking. Yeah, up ahead. The other little one that was playing with this one, drinking from her mother, and now Big Mama deciding that it's enough. The little one's trying to run after her from the other side, trying female. They use their tails and their feet and their trunk, and they're constantly very concerned about, or they're very aware of where the calves are in relation to them. Even if they can't see them, they're very tactile creatures, beings, and whenever there's a calf around an adult, you'll see them stepping back with the feet and feeling with the back leg, or feeling with the tail, using the tail as a tactile tool to feel for the position of a calf so that they don't. The strangest thing is that they don't inadvertently hurt a calf, but they will purposely discipline a calf. And you'll often, sometimes, hear a squeal. And most sorry, let me just go ahead, Phil. The last one. A ways up that road where it meets up with Impala Plat. Come up to the open area that's about 2 k's up. Up open area. Yeah, affirmative. Join me. As I've mentioned before, elephants are very particular about their drinking water, and in many places where there isn't standing water, they will go into the dry riverbeds and they will dig in the sand and they will make drinking holes. And very often you'll find that the matriarch needs to dig and she needs to make sure that she gets water first, and it's always a hierarchical thing. The oldest drinks first and the calves must wait. But you'll always get impatient children. And I've often seen places where there is only one drinking spot, where it has been a drinking hole for generations and generations, and digs into the side of the bank where it gets quite deep into the clay of the bank, and only one trunk can fit in, and you find the calves trying to squeeze their way in. As soon as mom brings water up from the hole to her mouth and the hole is exposed, the youngster will try and stretch in there, but will never be able to reach the water. And you'll often find that the cows will reprimand the children, sometimes even jabbing them or even physically pushing them aside, and of course you'll always get the children squealing because of that. The discipline and manners are very important in elephant society, and to enforce that they do get physical with their calves. But that's only really disciplinary. It's not. I've never seen them injure a calf accidentally, unless, well, never seen them do that. And you, little girl, a whole mouthful of food and a trunk full too. It could have been that there was a bull that's been around that's been hassling them. I'm not sure why. These cows are all dripping from their temporal glands. She's actually using her feet, this young female. She's using her feet to help tear the vegetation from the ground. She'll wrap her trunk around things and then she'll kick it with her foot if it's not coming loose. Morning, Lisa. How old is the matriarch? Very difficult to say. SRQ. Don't know where that is. But Lisa, very difficult to gauge the age, especially adult cows. The tusks are not an indicator. Some cows are bigger than others. She looks big. She's not a tall old girl, but she is quite big in size. I don't know, I'd say maybe sort of around 40 odd. I'm sure that this is one of her first calves. This is a daughter of hers that may be her first calf. But there is another cow here that is suckling the smallest of the calves, which also could be her first daughter. Let's move again. Actually heading up to Rebecca's Road now. And I think a lot more relaxed now that we've been behaving ourselves and we're not moving around too much. But they might get a bit of a break from us, because from here going up towards, actually they're heading towards Quarantine, and the general directions they're moving in is sort of towards the big dip on the western edge of Quarantine, and maybe eventually Gari Dam later in the day. follow Jen on Twitter. Tweet from Jen, what will cause elephants to trumpet and how far can it be heard? Well, many things, Jen, and then trumpeting is also it's an emotional response to different things. So trumpeting, it can either be in response to something negative or positive, in times of fun, times of mating, times of birthing. When a cow is giving birth, the whole herd trumpets very excitedly. Trumpeting is also used as a warning in an aggressive, offensive gesture, if they're trying to chase lion or humans, or there are a bunch of different reasons why an elephant would trumpet. Very loud, not as loud as it doesn't travel as far as their lower infrasound communications. And it depends on how loud it is, depends on how vocal. Some of the trumpeting to be heard or to make a point is a lot louder than others. Sometimes it's just a little low trumpet. It's hard to really sort of define it, because it's very much like us. In fact, there's sort of normal volumes, and then there are volumes when they raise their voices. Oh, look at that little one pushing that little acacia, practicing to push trees over, having a rub. Now using its foot and giving up. That's 3 best mates, cousins. Oh, interesting question from Dave in Toronto. Morning, Dave. How many generations in a single herd that you would have? Sorry, little one. How many generations in a herd, and at what age would an elephant leave the herd? Well, as far as generations, I think you would probably find that maybe, I'd say up to maybe 4. The most. Old lady with her daughters and their daughters, and maybe the new daughters of those daughters. They're allowing me to get relatively close now, especially this little girl. Sorry, baby, sorry. It's only really the bulls that are likely to leave the herd. We might also get the babies coming out. Of course, fork-tailed drongos hanging around catching insects that they chase up. The cows, females stay with the herd. Daughters will stay with the mothers and become mothers themselves. And it's only when the matriarch eventually passes on that those daughters, her oldest daughters, then become the matriarchs of their own family unit. Generally about 3 generations in each herd. Bulls, well, elephant puberty occurs anywhere from 9 onwards in females and maybe 10, 11 onwards in the bulls when they start going through puberty. And when the bulls are in their mid to late teens is when they might start leaving the herd. It's hard to tell because they, from a relatively young age, they start lagging behind, and eventually I'll just follow on with some bulls that might visit and carry on living with the bulls. But generally by the time they're in their late teens, they've moved on from the herd. And actually, I don't know if we can see that, but there was a youngster that was actually using its tail and its back legs to feel where the calf is. Let's move again. The seal and any plants that are poisonous to elephants. Well, yes, they are. I guess they're not likely to really eat them because they probably know that it's poisonous, but I'm not too sure which. I really not sure which plants that would be bad for them. Get a look at me. Okay, copied that, thanks. And here they are going to now all come out right in front of us. Unfortunately, a couple of other vehicles arriving now. Let's see how they react to that.
Looks like that young bull there on 12 o'clock has got a gash on his left side.
That one? Yes, I see that. That's probably just... Virginia and Kentucky. Hello, Virginia. I'm just looking this little Ellie on him. Got a little bit of a scratch, and there's that other little boy at the back there that's got a big hole in his rump. It looks like it's getting a bit septic. Oh, look at these children. You're most welcome. How do they reprimand? Hello, Virginia, Kentucky. How do they reprimand their youngsters? They shove them, they push them, they poke them with their tusks sometimes. They they'll curl their trunk up a little bit underneath them and then actually use the outside of the trunk and push on the calf, or push it away or push it to the side. You wouldn't really see them doing anything under these circumstances, because this is all just peaceful feeding, and unless the children start getting boisterous and an adult needs to step in. But it's mostly under certain conditions, like when they're drinking at a hole or when it's rest time. The most peaceful thing sitting with Ailey's like this. Absolutely wonderful. Here comes Mum. She's a big girl. She's going to now move the herd. Watch. Yeah. A little bit of rumbling. Getting the herd together. What age they begin to grow their tusks from Kim in California? Kim, pretty much from the time they come out. Their first set of tusks, which are the incisors, called tushes, T-U-S-H. And the tushes are out for 2 years. They lose them, I think, by the second year, and then the adult tusks start coming out. And of course, that very much depends on the genetics as to how big their tusks are going to be. Seems like what she's done now, she got them all together, she gave them a little bit of a rumble, and now instead of feeding slowly, they're actually on the move. So my guess is that she's going to be cutting through here and going through onto Quarantine, and then eventually maybe heading towards Gowrie Dam, which might be nice. But the whole herd is now starting to move. The kids have to trot to catch up, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to follow them through onto Quarantine. We might do a little bit of a drive and then eventually go around there. But yeah, they are now on the move. Because there are other vehicles here, I don't want to be 3 vehicles pushing them. So I'm actually going to, I'm not even going to bother following them, because I don't want to push them. Some of them started running. I don't want to be the cause of any more upset. remember that Jennifer in New York saying one of her fondest memories was when they had a baby elephant on drive that sort of threw a stick at me. That I remember that distinctly. There was also that time welcome back. I just want to do this. Thanks, Phil. You're welcome. If that helps. I think it helps to switch off and talk on the radio. I think what happened was I was talking on the radio and then cut out again. It's a difficult problem to fix. So we left the Ellies because they started running, and I think when they started moving and the vehicle started following, they sort of picked up their pace a little bit. The Arathusa vehicle also decided to leave. Now the Torchwood vehicle has also left, so a good thing that all three of us have left them be and they can carry on in peace. So I'm going to, rather than try and follow them through that thick bush, we're going to try and get around onto Quarantine. It's an open area, see if we can watch them come out there. It might be fun because it's nice and open, and they might start feeling around for marula fruits underneath some of the marula trees. But I was saying there was another moment, apart from that time when that calf threw the stick at me, there was another moment with Lishan, when Lishan was on camera and we were sitting on Central Road and there was a youngster in one of the little mud wallows and water holes where they dug for water in the riverbed, and it sprayed us with mud. I was thinking about incidents that will come to me in time. It's very hard to just sort of suddenly come up with something when I'm asked about the favorite moment or a favorite something. Excuse me a sec. Go ahead, Phil. Okay, copy that, thanks. I'm heading another direction. Folks, talking on, hopefully that's not changed our signal much. Interesting. Is that Kathy, I think? The library open. I was asking Nebraska, Kathy, wanting to know if this wild foxglove we have is toxic. The foxglove, the normal foxglove, which is, I'm just trying to think of the name now, off the top of my head, the common garden variety of foxglove, is a different family to our foxglove, and I'm not sure. I don't think it is. I know that there's nothing that really eats the foxglove, but I know that the foxglove is used in heart medicine. I'm just trying to think. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it'll come to me. 378. it doesn't say anything. Normally, Anita Fabian's book, she does mention if there's any significance to any particular plant. Basically, the sesame family that the foxglove belongs to. But most of the old world countries, this family is not really going to occur much, I don't think, in the Western Hemisphere, the New World. Very closely related to the devil's thorn and the devil's claw that we've seen. In fact, the flowers are almost identical. A very interesting thing about the flowers is that they have very specific markings that, when seen with an ultraviolet light or seen through ultraviolet or infrared, turn out to be completely different signs, and they're essentially like runways for insects that guide the insect into the heart of the flower where they need to be to pollinate it and to receive a little reward in the process. Screeched to a halt with the baby tortoise in the road. Now, that's a baby leopard tortoise, and maybe I need to go off to the side so we can see it. That's a tiny little thing, probably only its second year, maybe second. Or third, I'm not sure. You can see how much more rounded this tortoise is to the flat hingeback tortoise. This is the leopard tortoise. The baby, this one is only probably smaller than my fist. Hey baby. Gorgeous little thing. Digitalis. Thank you, Brian. Yes, digitalis. Used in heart medicine as far as I know. There's another one. This is the sesames. Same family. I'll see if I can find it. Slightly darker color. Thanks for all those of you who are emailing the digitalis for me. Now there is similar, that's the sesame, that pink one. Similar, very similar. In fact, let me find another one that's a bit difficult maybe, no? I'm going to find a different one. Much darker flower to the wild foxglove, but the same family, and just a little darker. That's called Sesamosum. It's genus. You also get another one called Sesamothamnus. There's more sesamum. Here's more over here. And there's actually a lot of devil's thorn. See, there's also foxglove. We'll find a foxglove field maybe. What would be interesting, thanks for those of you who sent in the digitalis, if you could give me an idea of what family the digitalis belongs to, which family of plants. Uh-oh. Looks like elephant's been busy here. Very busy. Road closed. Now I certainly hope that they don't come and chop up this marula tree because it's been pushed over a little bit. We just need to divert the road around it. We won't get underneath it, sadly. It's okay. Okay. That must have been that big bull that was around yesterday. Let me get back to this little road that runs on the western side of quarantine. I think those alleys are probably going to be on their way out by now. Well, they could also just be stuck in there. Find our way. There are a couple of mud wallows, very deep mud wallows in this drainage line that they have to cross, so they might well have stopped there and had a little bit of a splash before they come out onto the open. But I have a feeling that they're eventually going to head towards Djuma waterhole. Maybe spell it for me. Stop and just scruff. Yes. Scrophulaceae. What? Yeah, one of those. Scrophulaceae, the herbs. Some are parasites, blah de blah de blah. Well, it's not the same family as our foxgloves. We do get Scrophulaceae. Why do botanists do this? Scrophulaceae. Anyways, ours belongs to the Pedaliaceae. And I want to just see, where are the scrophulars? Scientifics. Scrophulaceae. So some 364, 366, 368. Okay, so our families that are the same as plants in the family, it's the snapdragon family. Let's see, we've got, well, there's the cycnium. We do have a few of these white cycniums on the ground. I have seen some of them. I will see if I can find you one. That's the one, your foxglove family. There's also ceratostigmas. here, the Zalewskias, Strigas and Zalewskias are also the Scrofulariaceae. I didn't know that. I should have known that. But James Britannia, a bunch of the Strigas, a bunch of the small herbs and belong to that foxglove family. Proterostigmas. In fact, this one, Harvia, very similar to the cultivated foxglove actually. Harvia sylvatica. And there's even a genus known as Veronica. And wild violets. See, I'm learning stuff every day. Scrofulariaceae. Quite a large, well represented family. What are you talking about, Brian? Another little lilac-breasted roller feather. Oh. Okay, it used to be in the Scrofulariaceae. Now in the plant family descriptions. Don't have that family here. Interesting. Plant classification. Linda in Ohio, do we have any large moths, and how big do they get? We do get some pretty large moths. I'm guessing there must have been a sighting here. I'm trying to get into this drainage line, but I'm not having any luck. There's another little pathway further on that we can get down there. We get I'll have to show you pictures. Nice buffalo thorn on the left there. Some of the similar to emperors or false emperors, the moon moth or lunar moth. I've even seen Mopani moth down here, but there's no Mopani, so they're obviously using a different host plant. I think actually won't be in my butterfly book. I should have some moths in the insect book. Could be down there, but I'm not seeing any elephants. Lepidoptera. Okay, I want to just pass a little bit of time down here because I want to listen. I'm not sure we're going to hear them feeding because they're feeding on a lot of soft vegetation at the moment, so they're not really breaking branches and twigs, not like some of the bulls at any rate. So some of our large moths. There's the Mopani moth up at the top there. I have seen a couple here. I had a pine emperor, funny enough, outside my room the other morning, flapping against the light. How big do they get? They probably get to be about 5, maybe 4 or 5 inches across. The pine emperor's wingspan is 120 millimeters. 12 centimeters is just under 6 inches, call it 5 inches. This is the lunar moth. Also about a 120, same, about 120 centimeters. These are all emperors that we have. Maybe the biggest, the biggest is this big emperor here, which is at least 6 inches, or if not a little bit bigger, wingtip to wingtip. And these are a bit smaller. Half the size for the roseate emperor. And those are the biggest moths. The most beautiful, one of the most beautiful, of course, is the lunar moth. These are all smaller. I'm not going to find any bigger moths than that. There you go. Still no Ellers coming out. We can wander around and see if we can find them. Otherwise, time to move on and see what else we can see. But I would be nice to catch up with them again. Thought they would be here somewhere, but maybe not. Oops. Elephants! Too far to the east of where they were. We're heading more north, but maybe we'll be lucky. As much as it's wonderful to sit with elephants and follow them like that, it's nice to just also leave them in peace for a little bit, so that they don't think that they're being hounded all the time. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead. Joanne, hello Joanne. We have the flower, I'm not too sure if I'm getting it right, Penstemon? I've never heard of it. Maybe. Maybe. Is that P-E, Brian? P-E-N? How's that spelled? We don't have any of the Plantagenaceae. So just give me the name again. Yeah, we don't have any of the Plantagenaceae family here in Africa. It's South Africa anyway. I'm going to go back to quarantine. I don't want to drive too much. No, there's nothing. we do not have Penstemon as a genus in Africa, well, certainly not here. So not in Africa. Maybe other parts of Africa, but not in this part of Africa. Wonderful noise. Well, they've no doubt found themselves a little peaceful spot in all of that terminalia that's across the riverbed here. And they must be feeding again quietly. Now I guess maybe slowly making their way up this way. Either we'll try and catch up with them towards the end of drive. Maybe we'll be lucky to get them on Djuma waterhole camera later. And even better, maybe catch up with them this afternoon when we come out again. Get up onto slightly higher ground, might be lucky, might be able to see across to the west, maybe see the back of an elephant. It is pretty thick at the moment. Sort of foliage is at its best. It's going to still get a little bit thicker towards the end of summer. Valerie, Pennsylvania Valerie. Have you ever heard of elephants killing big cat cubs? I have heard of it. I've never seen it myself. I haven't even seen it on film. So I've only heard stories. Valerie. And here I'm looking over there, and look what's over here. Hello, big boy. So, they might be in contact with each other, this big alien must. Hello, big boy. Gosh, look at the size of you. Oh, he's huge. Very, very big tusks. magnificent elephant. There's also an elephant that somehow looks familiar, and those two very blunt tusks, he must have had two very, very big tusks, both of them probably broke, and have been blunted by use over time. Blunted. And he's more or less heading in the direction where I thought the rest of the herd, where that herd was. So let's see, let's try and stay with him for a little bit. Oh, he's a big elephant. We're only really going to get an idea of his size if we get to see the herd interacting with him. Even that big cow will be dwarfed by his size. I'm just going to try and get, let's try here. Coming to eat marulas. There are marulas here under this tree. So maybe he'll stop for this tree and sniff around, see if he can pick up any marulas. Yep, looks like he might be doing that. Give us a chance to see him head on while he's digging in the grasses for marula fruits. Morning, Bill. Bill from Michigan. Bill wants to have me have a guess at his weight and his height. Well, he's probably well over 6 tons metric. How high is he? I'd say at the shoulders he must be, ooh, I don't know, 12 feet. What we need to do is take a photograph from him, of him there next to this marula tree, and sort of take a line across to the marula tree just off to his left, about where his height is where that one of those lower branches is coming out. And then as soon as he moves off, I'll go and stand there and we can see. What is he? He's eating mushrooms or something. I think he's eating mushrooms. Seeing big white things going into his mouth instead of marula fruits, which we won't really see. And comes another mushroom. Look at the size of that thing. Oops, he nearly dropped it. Pieces are falling off and making big thudding sounds. I need to look in my mushroom book now. Okay, rather a specific mushroom species. Hello Lorraine, good afternoon to you, because you're in Australia, so it's Queensland in fact. Lorraine's saying we've seen 2 elephant bulls in 2 days, both of them in must, but neither of them with females. Well, it could be that being big ellie bulls, the way they do move around, is if they're in touch with any females, they'll certainly be speaking to them, not necessarily visiting with them. And it'll also depend on whether there are any females in estrus. They no doubt are able to pick up the scent of females, and the estrus scent, of course, is something that they'll pick up as well from smelling the urine of females. And then no doubt if they do pick that up, they'll be in vocal contact with females and then meet up with them. But also, I just have to mention that I don't know how long you spent with the bull yesterday, and we're only noticing him today for the first time. We don't know what he's been doing this morning. We don't know what he was doing last night. We're only visiting with them for a brief period in their 24-hour period. So we would have to stay with them. We would have to sit with the elephants for quite a while and see. Now, there is a family group that we were with this morning. They're somewhere directly west of us across the drainage line. Jambo Buana Tembo. Yes, even though he's not in full must actually, he's probably coming out of must. He's not dribbling from his penis. His temporal glands got a little bit of fluid on them. Maybe he's only coming into must now. Very calm old man. Okay, so now that he's gone, I want to just go quickly and stand there where so you can get an idea of size. And I want to see that mushroom. There's a not quite ripe marula fruit, still turning yellow. He has a piece of this giant mushroom. Interesting, there's a termite wing. It's grown around, you can see how it's grown, because they grow so fast. They grow around things, and this blade of grass that's completely embedded inside the mushroom, as is the termite wing. incredible how they just envelop things, mushrooms. I don't know if this is edible or palatable for us, but I'm just keeping a piece of it, and I'll try and get some idea in the book later. But for the time being, we've got to go and keep up with him. He's heading, I think he's heading towards those alleys. They might meet up. Get some idea of that from that little exercise. But it's always nice to sort of have scale. So I would probably be, the top of my hat would probably be where the top of his tusk is, just under his chin. Maybe even lower. I'd probably be able to stand under his, maybe at his armpit. There's the family. Brenda wants to know how the trunk works. Brenda in Pennsylvania. Now, I'm really glad that we stayed with him, and we've been killing a little bit of time here because the family is just up ahead of us. And what I want to do is follow him, because I'd like to see this greeting that is probably going to take place as he approaches them. It is a little bit thick where they are, so he's obviously been talking to them all this time that we've been watching, because he's heading straight towards them. So Brenda wants to know how the trunk works. Quite confused about that. There are thousands of muscle groups, each muscle group having numbers of muscles within each muscle group in the trunk. Some people say up to 40,000 muscles in the trunk. That the tip of the trunk has two little protrusions that act as like fingertips, that they're able to pick up a peanut off of the ground. Quite dexterous little tips to the African elephant trunk. So he's approaching from sort of the side. Don't know how much we're going to be able to see because it's a little bit thick here, and the family, here we go. This one youngster is now seeing him. Ignoring this little one. I guess he's got to go and talk to the matriarch first. That was the little boy that had the hole in his bum. Can't go any further, he stopped. I want to creep around the tree into his rump. Big rump that it is. He's very tolerant. The herd's not even really acknowledging him much, maybe because they've been speaking to each other already for a while. Matriarch further up under that acacia. One of the adult females. Getting a little bit thick now. This little boy is quite intrigued with this big bull. Looks like he came close, maybe just as a greeting, and he's Actually not interacting with them physically at all. Going into the drainage line. So maybe it's just sort of, maybe it's etiquette, maybe it's the matriarch has told him not to approach, and I can't really get in there that easily. Maybe over here. Mama's suckling again. Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Anna Marie, hi. What's the elephant's strongest now? We don't know where to look. We've got him pulling that piece of that knobthorn down. Is it knobthorn? Looks like it. And we got Mama. They don't look much further than the immediate surroundings. They don't need to. So they take note of a lot of things in their immediate surroundings. Another tree just broken further back. Looks like this female showing the youngster some things. Not easy to see behind that tree, but she's sort of touching leaves and almost like she's showing the little one. There's that little trunk. Still learning how to dig into the vegetation to find what it needs. So it's almost like the youngster's copying Mom. So it's almost like she's trying to show it. Interesting blue flowers just in front of them. The plumbago. The lovely blue plumbago. Very delicate, guiding the calf to touch certain things. And of course it's still got to learn how to use its trunk properly. Now Brenda, I'm not too sure how you want me to describe the trunk, other than, well, it is the nose. It's an extension of the nose. 2 nostrils that run down the length of the trunk, separated by cartilage. Flexible, obviously, because of the way it bends and things. Hello, little one. Oh. Trying to copy Mom, and that's all part of the learning process. Almost everything about elephants' lives is a learning process, is a learned thing. There's very little that they're born with, very much like us. When they're born, they're pretty helpless, other than being able to walk. I suppose that's why they have such a long gestation period. It's just to have the child develop a little bit more in the womb, so that when it does come out, it's infantile, but it is able to walk, because it's no good if it can't. Little one's probably only, well, just under a year. I don't think it's quite even a year yet. We're just so blessed to be able to be allowed to sit here with them. Nap time for little elephants. Hello Sharon in Austria. An interesting question. With them eating the fruits and the fungi and what they are eating, do elephants get internal parasites? And if so, what do they do about them? Well Sharon, I know for a fact that elephants use different things medicinally. And there are no doubt a bunch of plants that they might either dig up or particular bark that they might use. You know, there's a tree here that we actually have along these drainage lines. It's an albizia. I'll think of its name in a minute. But the bark can be used to kill internal parasites, and I have no doubt that elephants use it too. But generally I think it's their digestive system more than anything else that helps to rid them, because they're flushing their system continually with the hindgut digestion, type of fermentation that they use to digest their food. I'm guessing that helps to kill off parasites. Albizia antelmintica, that's what it is, just remembered. She's getting a little bit of bark now off of this. This is a black monkey thorn, not a knob thorn. So if we break down the name of the Albizia antelmintica, the internal parasites are known as helminths, the worms, and the tree is called antelmintica, which is sort of anti-helminth, which is a referral to or reference to the fact that it has properties to get rid of helminths, endoparasites. So baby's fast asleep. She's not going to go anywhere. Hello, Mrs. Ellie. Rolling around. Maybe I should go forward and you can see the little one. Is that better?
That's the same.
Oh. And that was a nap for a baby elephant. I want some milk now, mummy. Now that baby's had a nap, she's going to move on. Go and join the rest of the herd. Well, she was just waiting for little one to have a nap. A drink and a nap. I was hoping there'd be a little bit of interaction between the bull and some of these Cindy, New Jersey Cindy. Cindy wants to know how old they are, at what age do they gain control of their trunks with them. None of them are estrus, so I guess he doesn't, and he's not in much. He might have just come past as a greeting, they might have spoken to each other. What I'd like to show you though is some of this big elephant's dung. Is that, you see it from here? Down. Or is it too close? I'm just going to find a stick or something. Porcupine claw will have to do. I don't know if you can notice that probably 90% of these marula fruits are still whole. They have been swallowed whole. They don't even know why elephants eat them sometimes, because sometimes they'll chew on some of them, but most of the time, most of these fruits actually just come out whole. Only about 25, maybe not even 25 to 30%, sometimes lower, of the food that they take in is digested. And so there is a lot of stuff that comes out that you can see. There must be a beetle breaking through there. Already dung beetles. And you see it moving. Yeah. Doesn't take the scarabs long to find it. I mean, there's another very big one buzzing around. He's practically only just dropped this dung and there are already flies and beetles even deep within the dung already. But there's an ancient myth that elephants can get drunk on fermenting marula fruits. And it's absolute nonsense. Because not only would they have to eat tons and tons of marula fruit, but they'd have to keep them in their stomach, and it would have to ferment in their stomach. And well, this time of the year, the kind of vegetation that they're eating when the marulas are ripe, they goes through their system so quickly that there's no time for their bodies to be affected by it. But it was a myth that was perpetuated by a film that was made in the 1970s by a wildlife filmmaker of the time who was beyond his years. His name was Jamie Ace, and I was a big fan of his as a kid because of the phenomenal movies. I mean, there was one about the desert. I don't think it was the Painted Desert, or I can't remember what it was. There's something about the desert. And there was another film called Beautiful People, which has got some wonderful footage, but unfortunately there's a lot of stuff that was manipulated for the camera. In those days, filmmakers did different things to what they do nowadays. But in the film, he told the story about how elephants get drunk, and there was a film of an elephant that appeared to be drunk, an elephant that was quite clearly not standing straight. And so he managed to tie that in with the myth. And what it was actually, it was very early in the days of elephant capture or elephant darting, and he actually got permission to film elephants just after they'd been drugged, before they went down, and he edited cleverly to portray elephants as getting drunk on the marula fruit. Okay, I think the herd's gone back up towards Zoe's Road. It's getting very thick. And once again, we're going to exit, leave the area. Maybe if we go around again onto Zoe's Road, we might find the family again. But just a lovely little scene. It's actually been a fantastic morning with lilies. At the moment it looks like they might bypass the whole Djuma waterhole side of things. It's not getting very hot. cloud is keeping it nice and cool. Only about, I don't know, maybe 28 degrees, high 70s, early 80s. Why is this roller making so much noise? Something in a marula tree here that's causing a roller and a starling. Could be snake, could be something that's threatening them. We have to take a look. Oh, the roller's gone. Another roller come in and gone. Well, hi Jeffrey in Texas. Very interesting concept put forward by Jeffrey that I firmly believe in. Jeffrey's asking if elephants have names for each other. Do they have particular vocalizations that they use for individuals? So I was looking at this marula tree a bit closer because I thought maybe there might be something in it. The roller and the starlings were... I'm not happy. I think they do, Jeffrey, and you think you're right. I mean, it's not necessarily names like we have names. I think it's a proven fact that dolphins do, and I think it's also it's probably a given that whales do. I have no doubt that elephants do. I have no doubt that they have particular rumblings or particular noises that they can refer to each other with. Something that I guess we will discover in time. But for animals with such ties, with such intelligence, and with the vocabulary that they have, I would say that it is highly likely that it's important for them to be able to address an individual. Yeah, they are. They're all feeding around this pushed over marula tree, so they're probably letting the calves actually eat some of the branches and twigs on the marula, holding a lot of water at this time of the year, and also important, very important as far as roughage is concerned. And little one throwing a bit of a tantrum. This is almost a deja vu moment. I seem to recall doing exactly the same thing almost a few years ago. I pushed over marula tree, approaching the herd and having them feeding on the branches. Now, of course, the marula trees are being very large trees. They also fruit on this tree. Being as large as they are, I just had to stop there because they're getting a little uneasy. Careful. See, now that's disciplining. I don't know, did you catch that? This cow, the older cow, actually, shame, she scared this little one that we've been watching. But the little one with her mother that we were watching tried to come in to feed on this marula, and this older cow didn't want them, so she actually forced the younger cow away. It's circumstances like this when the family does get a little, it's like elephant on a kill. They love each other until there's food or there's something that they have to concentrate on. And I think little one got pushed around a little bit. That little one was pushed around a little bit under that little bit of an onslaught. But clearly this older cow, it's not the matriarch, but this older cow, obviously the second oldest, or maybe the sister of the matriarch. There, now the other one's going around the back. Jealous. As you can see, she's eating branches, and the branches are going in leaves, fruit, the works. She's actually picking the leaves off with the green fruit. She's eating it. Now, the other cow that was just being chased away has now come around the other side. So she's going to try and feed on something on that side. Because the main portion of the tree is being fed on by the older cow and the matriarch. So she'll just try and squeeze in there. She's obviously third in line in terms of where she stands. Only the three cows, three older children, and the two older children, well, three I guess, older children, and then two youngsters. So that little, the middle calf, that her firstborn, I guess, talking about this, the smallest cow, her firstborn, just seeking a bit of comfort there, obviously a little bit stressed from Auntie having a hissy fit. And a small herd of elephant like this will probably could even deplete this marula of all of its lower branches, because they only take advantage of the fact that there are branches to eat now, and the big cow actually breaking even more of them down so that the calves can get to them. I'm guessing that the tree may have been pushed over by an elephant, a bull, either trying to shake it to get fruit loose. It would have been a lovely dual marula. I mean, it would have been two seeds that germinated at the same time and managed to grow up together for the last 50, 60 years or more. Now they're separated. So this is Angry Aunt, who must have found some mud on the way here through the drainage line. Probably when I was looking for a way down there was probably when they were in the mud. She looks like she's the only one that really had much of a mud bath. Although the matriarch might. She's behind the marula tree, I can't see her. Is this in the way?
No.
No. The two little boys that are with the herd, both of them already, and we've got the one on the left, he's the one that had the little hole in his rump that looks like it's getting a little bit, well, it's probably fairly recent. He's flicking it with his tail, slightly just behind this bush willow, so we can't see it too well. But you can see how he's off to the side, and there's another little boy to the right. I think it's a little boy, it wouldn't normally be. Already starting to gain a little bit of independence, already starting to sort of stand away from the herd, but still staying with the herd because they're still young. Funny. Too delightful. I could sit here all day. Are you going to come and say hello, little one? Picking up a marula fruit. And big sister just blocking it a little bit. She's got a lot of ticks on her. Just, you can see that one big white tick just above her knee on the right flank, but under her armpits. Full of big white ticks under her arms. And these are probably ticks that specialize in elephants. Hello, Auntie. Angry Aunt. And that, I think, is the little boy that had the scratch on his side. Difficult. I don't think it can be easy for a camera person. I know it'd certainly be very difficult for me trying to choose who to point the camera at, because there are lots of little things happening amongst them. How long does it take for elephants to digest and pass what they eat? Good question, Liz. Where is SRQ? I'd be interested to know. I'm not sure, Liz. I know a friend of mine who did a study on elephants. She did her PhD. I know that she did do some studies because they would actually follow elephants until they could tie in with what they were eating. I think it's anything. I think obviously it also depends on what they're eating and how much roughage they take in. I think anywhere from 12 to 24 hours, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll try and find another answer to that, Liz. I don't really want to go anywhere, but it is reaching that time of the day when we're going to have to say goodbye. I'm going to have to say goodbye to you and to them. Although I can sit here for a little while longer. I think we can sit for a few minutes longer. I want an extra 5 minutes. Everybody wants an extra 5 minutes, say aye. Aye. And I heard a resounding aye from around the world. Actually, it was so loud I heard it. Is it Lisa or Liz? From Sarasota, Florida, SRQ. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Oh, there was a typo on the name. It wasn't Liz, it's Lisa. Sorry, Lisa. Sarasota, Florida. Come here. Come on. Wow. That gave the little one a fright. Come, little one. Oh, are you on the little one there? I was playing on the trunk of the marula. That's just such a gorgeous little thing. There's a mound of sand where the root ball of the marula has sort of lifted up. So he's going to climb up there. King of the castle. Five minutes of silent elephant feeding. I'm not going to talk for a minute. Let's listen to the kingfishers and the ellies. I don't think I quite got around to the trunk question. How long does it take for them to use their trunk? It can take, well, I mean, for feeding it's fairly quick, but to get the finesse of picking things up or throwing sand or mud onto their bodies, I mean, you're just looking at that little one trying to strip the leaves, and it's a 2-year-old, and it's already using the trunk nicely, but there's still a lot more it has to learn. It's almost like a child, human child, first picking up a pen or a crayon and scribbling with it, not quite having the control of eye-hand coordination. Very similar with elephants. They've got to perfect all the actions that the trunk does. It does take time. Some things up to 5 years, maybe even more. So everybody, say goodbye to this family for now. I'm hoping that we might find them again later this afternoon. And I want to thank you all for joining me, for staying up late for those that did. And well, for some of you who are in your afternoons, this is going to be our day most of the day. But unfortunately we're going to have to head back to camp now, and we're going to leave them in peace. It is peaceful. It's truly the most wonderful thing to do in the world, for me at any rate. My name is Mark. Liam has been on camera, Brian in final control, and they'll do a bit of a swap around later. So we'll see you 1600. It's 4 o'clock Central African time later this afternoon. Sleep well, goodbye, have fun, love you lots.